Dear students, today we will be talking about presentation of demographic data. The objectives of our presentation is to describe the various methods of presenting demographic data and to highlight the importance of meaningful presentation of demographic data. As you know, organisms do not live in isolation. Instead, grow in association with individuals of same or other types. The individuals of a species which live together in an area at a given time is called population. There are many ways of studying populations and the changes taking place in them. All these studies are concerned with the collection of information about age, specific natality, mortality, etc. The study of population dynamics is called demography. Since the rate of increase in a population is effectively the difference between birth rate, death rate, immigration and immigration at any given time, the basic aim of any demographic study is to quantify the changes in a population by finding out the numbers of births, deaths, immigrants and immigrants. The numerical data, so called during population studies, can be presented as life tables, survivorship curves or population pyramids. Now, let us discuss life tables first. A life table is a table of probabilities dealing with the rate of death and expectation of life at various time intervals over an organism's lifespan. Life tables are useful in understanding patterns and causes of mortality, predicting the future growth or decline of populations and managing populations. Life tables are of two types: cohort and static. A cohort life table follows the survival and reproduction of all members of a cohort from birth to death. A cohort is the set of individuals born, hatched or recruited in a population during a defined time interval. Cohorts are frequently defined on an annual basis. For example, all individuals born in a particular year. But other time intervals can also be used as well. A static life table records the number of living individuals of each age in a population and their reproductive output. The two types of life tables have distinct advantages and disadvantages, some of which are discussed. Age-based life tables. Life tables, whether cohortic or static, that classify individuals by age are called age-based life tables. Such life tables treat age the same way we normally do. That is, individuals that have lived less than one full year are assigned age 0. Those that have lived 1 year or more but less than 2 years are assigned age 1 and so on. Life tables represent age by the letter X and use X as a subscript to refer to survivorship, fecundity and so on for each age. Now, the second form is size-based and stage-based life tables. Size-based and stage-based life tables classify individuals by size, developmental stage rather than by age. Size-based and stage-based tables are often more useful or more particular for studying organisms that are difficult to classify by age or whose ecological roles depend more on size or stage than on age. Cohort life tables. To build a cohort life table for, let us say, pinus trees that germinated in the state of Jammu and Kashmir during the year 2012, we would record how many individuals were born during the year 2012 and how many survived to the beginning of 2013, 2014, etc. until there were no more survivors. This record is called the survivorship schedule. Different books use different notations for the number of survivors in each age. Some write this as SX, some AX and some NX. We will use SX here. We must also record the fecundity schedule, which is the number of offsprings born to individuals of each age. The total number of offsprings is usually divided by the number of individuals in the age, giving the average number of offspring per individual or per capita fecundity. Again, different texts use different notations for the fecundity schedule, including BX. This symbol we will use here, or MX. Many life tables count only females and their female offsprings for animals with two sexes and equal numbers of males and females of each age. The resulting numbers are the same as if males and females were both counted. For most plants, hermaphroditic animals and many other organisms, distinctions between the sexes are non-existent or more complex, and life table calculations may have to be adjusted. Now, static life tables. A static life table is similar to a cohort life table, but introduces a few complications. For many organisms, especially mobile animals with long lifespans, it can be difficult or impossible to follow all members of a cohort throughout their lives. In such cases, population biologists often count how many individuals of each age are alive at a given time. That is, they count how many members of the population are currently in the 0 to 1 year age old class, the 1 to 2 year old class, etc. These counts can be used as if they were counted of survivors in a cohort, and all the calculations described below for a cohort life table can be performed using them. Now, quantities in a life table. Survivorship and fecundity schedules are the raw data of any particular life table. From them, we can calculate a variety of other quantities, including age-specific rate of survival, mortality, fecundity, survivorship curves, life expectancy, generation time, net reproductive rate, and intrinsic rate of increase. Which of these quantities you calculate will depend on your goal in constructing the life table. Now, life table calculations. If we mark n into t plants at time t and then recensus them a month later, that is time t plus 1, and find n t plus 1 plants, we can estimate the survival probability as P1 is equal to n into t plus 1 divided by n into t. For example, we mark 500 plants initially and find 450 when we recensus. We estimate the survival of probability as 450 divided by 500 is equal to 0.9. The real power of the life table approach comes from the ability to calculate size of populations in future. Suppose we recensus our plots after still another month and find 425 still alive, then we can estimate the month 2 survival probability as 425 divided by 450, that is equal to 0.94. We can also estimate the cumulative survivorship probability, that is the chance of surviving from the initial time of our new census. The cumulative survivorship probability to time x is often written as Lx. For the first time interval, L1 is equal to P1, but for the second interval, L2 is equal to P1 into P2. In this case, L2 is equal to 0.9. Full life tables help us to find several variables. The subscript x refers to the time interval x, and x is equal to number at risk of dying. Dx is equal to number dying. Px is equal to probability of surviving. Qx is equal to probability of dying. Using these definitions, let us write the probability of dying as Qx is equal to dx by nx, and the probability of surviving as Px is equal to 1 minus Qx. The cumulative survivorship probability is Lx is equal to P1, P2, Pn minus 1. We can use the equation to estimate the average contribution to the reproductive rate made by individuals of age x. It is simply Lx Fx, where Fx is the average number of seeds produced by individuals of age x. Finally, we can estimate the average life expectancy of individuals of age x by calculating the average of nx and nx plus 1. For each class interval, then sum those average from the present time to highest possible age and divide by nx. In symbols, we first calculate Lx is equal to nx plus 1 divided by 2. The average life expectancy is thus. We see why this is an average life expectancy. Think of the sum in the numerators, all of the time lived by the members of the population. If we then divide it by current population size, we get an average life expectancy. Here is an illustrative life table constructed by Susan Callis in 1991 on Colensia vina is given below as example of life table. She was able to estimate the probability of a plant's surviving each of several stages. Now, survivorship curves. A survivorship curve for a given population is a semi-log plot between number of survivors on a log scale on y-axis against age on x-axis. These curves are powerfully visual tools for the understanding of the patterns of survivorship and mortality in populations and can be used to make the quick assessments of differences between populations. With the wide variety of life phenomena, we observe a considerable variety of survivorship patterns. They extend from those with low mortality through most of the lifespan to those with high initial mortality. Davy in 1947 described 3 types of survivorship curves. Type 1, a convex curve in which mortality is low initially and throughout more than the half of lifespan, after which it increases markedly. Type 2 survivorship curve, a straight line in which mortality is more or less constant throughout the lifespan. And type 3 survivorship curve, a concave curve in which mortality is extremely high initially but decreases markedly for much of the remainder of the lifespan. The shape of the survivorship curve can be used to tell at a glance what are the critical periods in the lives of individual organisms. Wherever the curve becomes steeper, there is an increase in mortality which indicates some environmental or developmental impact on population. The main advantage of using a semi-log plot is that any population where the proportion of individuals dying each unit of time, such as each week or each year, is a constant, will plot as a straight line. Now, let us discuss the 3 basic semi-log plot survivorship curves with specific examples. Type 1 survivorship curve, that is having initial low mortality. Type 1 survivorship curves are characterized by high survival in early and middle life, followed by a rapid decline in survivorship in later life. Humans are one of the species that show this pattern of survivorship. Rotifers and mountain sheep are another examples of these types of survivorship. In populations showing the rotifer, human, mountain sheep survivorship pattern, a given individual has a relatively long life expectancy at birth. Even for an individual at about 1/3 of the lifespan, the probability of living to a ripe and old age is quite good. Range species in Southeast California and several species of orchids of genus Dactylorhynchus have been shown to have survivorship curves of the rotifer, human, mountain sheep type. Now, type 2 survivorship curve, that is constant mortality. This type of survivorship curve is represented by the laboratory populations of hydra and the natural populations of gull and American robin. In these populations, there is more or less constant rate of death throughout life or at all stages until near the end of lifespan. In case of hydra and gulls, the rate is quite constant from the birth through nearly 3/4 of the lifespan. For a given individual in a population of this kind, there is considerably less chance of survivorship to old age at say the midpoint of lifespan than for individuals in the rotifer, human, mountain sheep type of survivorship. Also, characteristic of this cluster of curve is the fact that mean duration is about 1/3 of the total lifespan, for example in hydra and gull, or somewhat less, for example in robin. Many herbaceous annuals such as the meadowgrass Poa annua and Phlox drummondi as well as herbaceous perennials show type 2 survivorship curve. Type 3 survivorship curve, that is having initial high mortality. In type 3 survivorship curve, the greatest mortality is experienced at early stages of life, with the relatively low rates of death for those surviving this bottleneck. This type of curve is characteristic of species that produce a large number of offsprings. This type of curve is represented by black-tailed deer and British robin. 3/4 of the initial population of black-tailed deer and the British robin die off within the first 10% of lifespan. Populations of Columbian ground squirrel in southern Alberta also show type 3 survivorship. Given individuals in populations of this type have a low life expectancy at birth, the mean duration of life being in the order of 1/15 of their lifespan. Now, let us discuss population pyramids. A population pyramid, also called an age structure diagram, is a graphical illustration that shows the distribution of individuals of various age groups in a population, typically that of a country or region of the world, which forms the shape of a pyramid when the population is growing. It is also used in ecology to determine the overall age distribution of a population, an indication of the reproductive capabilities and likelihood of the future growth of a species. It typically consists of 2 back-to-back bar graphs with the population plotted on the x-axis and age on the y-axis, one showing the number of males and one showing the females in a particular population. In same age groups, also called cohorts, Males are conveniently shown on the left and females on the right, and they may be measured by a raw number or as a percentage of the total population. Population pyramids are often viewed as the most effective way to graphically depict the age and sex distribution of a population, partly because of the very clear image these pyramids present. A great deal of information about the population broken down by age and sex can be read from the population pyramid, and this can shed light on the extent of development and other aspects of the population. A population pyramid also tells how many people of each age range live in a particular area. There tends to be more females than males in the older age groups due to females' longer life expectancy. Population pyramids are often used in human demography. For humans, where population pyramids usually represent number for a whole country, the shape of the pyramid reflects birth and death rates. Bottom-heavy pyramids show increasing annual birth rates and high infant mortality. Top-heavy pyramids with more older people than expected show a decreasing birth rate and good adult survival. This figure shows a very irregular or gashed pyramid from Russia. The indentations in the year group of 10 to 19 and 35 to 44 years of age are probably due to the Second World War. The older cohort was of fighting age during the war, so the low number are due to increased mortality. The younger cohorts were born during 1939 to 49, when the birth rate was low because of the war, when so many young men died. A helpful analogy to facilitate understanding population pyramids is that just a builder employs a blueprint for showing a house's structure, demographers and geographers employ population pyramids as a blueprint for showing population pyramids. With this, I conclude today's topic. Thank you.